Hello, and welcome to another week at the bungalow. So this week we're getting the soffits and fascias done, and also battens on the roof. Start closing her in and keeping the weather out slightly more. So marking up here for cutting the rafters, for where the soffit and fascia are going to fix. So it's working along with the spirit level and marking it up. And then along with the circular saw, chopping it off. Found this is the easiest way. Keeps it nice and square. And you don't have the problem you do with you trying to use a handsaw too much. Some of the awkward ones still needed that, but most of them we got away with this circular saw. So once we were happy with where it was getting cut off, string line went across and we carried on getting them all done. Then it was cut the other way to give us a start off for the handsaw. Made it nice and neat. Once that was done, we could get the soffit in. So that slips in between the rafter and the top of the brickwork. And we got these in as fewer pieces as possible, which is why it's such a long length. Claire'd already primed and painted it, so it was covered all the way round. Obviously there's a few snots on the brickwork. Needed a bit of angle grinder just to knock them off so it slid in there nicely. So after the first trial fit, it was just a matter of marking it up and then running along with the angle grinder. And with a bit of persuasion, she was in there. So that was it, working our way around the front. Same process. As you can see, the one behind us is all fixed in. This one had to be toothed around the block work, so it's snagged in nicely. And then screwed into place. And then once that's in place, we measure out, check the overhang and cut off what's not required, so it ends up with a neat finish. Then the fascia is cut to size and screwed on. Ready for the fascia vents. And then on top of the fascia vent we've got the breather membrane support tray. Just opposite sagging towards the end, so as it runs down the rafters. Just got that last bit that tends to sag and you can have the water pooling up there. So instead the support tray goes in and just make sure that the water runs out and into the gutter if anything gets behind. So you can see all the way along and the support tray in place. Then we've got the slate tiles that go underneath the batten. I mean, these aren't slate, they're artificial, but would have traditionally been slate. Screwed down into the block work, and then the battens will go on top, and then they'll sandwich them between the batten and the block work. And because it's all been new and replaced, got no gap, and it sits quite happily. So I've got some screws there with a nice coarse thread, and they'll grip into the block work quite happily. Found that the support tray cut best with a standing knife. We did try with a hand saw and with the circular saw, but it just seemed to splinter into a million bits. Worked out that in the end it was easiest to cut the mitre with a standing blade and then bend it until it sort of fractured. So here we've got the end of the steel beam. This is the one that runs across and supports the bottom of the column that runs down from the ridge, just poking through into the space that will be the battens. So we're just knocking the end of that off. Once that was done, it got a coat of red oxide primer just to keep the rust away, but it's internal anyway. And then we're back on the other side with the slate going on. We'll have allowed about a 75mm overhang here. We're going to have render on the front face, which will take up most of that or some of that. So we're giving ourselves 75mm. And the other side completed, exactly the same, Soffit fascia, the ventilation strip, and then the tray for the breather membrane. And I think on this occasion I pretty much picked the windiest day to try and start getting the breather membrane on the roof. And the first few battens, which is always the scary bit, getting the spacing right, getting it in the right place for the cloaker. Had some grand idea that spirit level would be really useful. In the end, measured down from the ridge, even distance either end, and snapped steering line. Give me something to measure down from. Obviously double checking that the fascia board was nice and even, which it was. So once the first few were on and screwed in place, then it was nailed in. So we're equal distances, 100mm centres on these for our plain tiles. We're reusing the old ones. Saw no point in buying new. They're perfectly serviceable. They've only been on the roof for 60 years, so they're pretty good still. I've had to buy some extra tile and a halves and new ridges. And as you can see at the far end there was a bit of a test go of how they'd all fit and whether they all worked. Checking that the overhang was right into the gutter. So a combination of using the spacer blocks and also measuring down from the line to make sure we weren't drifting off, making sure the battens were nice and straight. So this was the first day on the battening. As you can see, we're holding a tub of nails. After that, got the tool belts out, made life a load easier. Got the hammer hanging and nails there ready to go. And then progress is just a bit quicker. Conversation with regards to getting around the window. We've taken the window out and then we've got a batten around it. Then gets the more difficult bit. So having to join the battens on the corner, levelling across, measuring down, balancing out between all of it, making sure we get the even amount and the right amount. But as always, once you get in the swing of it, progress is relatively good. Window back in, heading towards the ridge. This is a nice feeling. This is when it gets good. You see you're almost done. So front roof is about 12 metres by 4.5 metres. So about 48 square metres, just over. Making sure we stagger the overlap on the battens. And up to chimney height. Quite a nice one of those jobs, nice and clean. You're not in the mud, you're not in the dirt, you're not scratching around on the floor. It's pretty good. So last few battens go in place. We've had to leave this side. We need to fill the cavity with some polystyrene bead. So that's why that's been left. So there's a few battens to go on the bottom there. But the rest of it, all done, all the way around the window. Windows in. And it's not looking too bad. Time will tell when the tiles go on. So as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one.